Hello, this is Blue Joe Saunders, WBO Middleweight Champion of the World. Subscribe to Sport and Icons to stay in touch with all the top news. God bless you all.
So I'm going up and down the current boxing divisions, through all of them, heavyweight right the way down to flyweight, minimum weight, all that kind of stuff, stopping off at welterweight, the super lightweights, the lightweights and light heavyweights, yada, yada, yada. But while there are all some fantastic divisions and some huge, huge fights that hopefully we're going to see this year, I found myself stopping off at the middleweight division. For me, the middleweight division has some interesting fights. And I don't really know why they're not happening. But currently, there are 4 champions in the middleweight division. And of course, what I'm talking about here is the WBC, is Jermall Charlo. The Super WBA champion is now Ryota Murata after Saul Canelo Alvarez vacated that belt. So Ryota Murata from Japan has been elevated from regular champion to full super champion for the WBA. Within the IBF, you've got Triple G, Gennady, Golovkin, and then the WBO, Demetrius, Andrade. So automatically, when you say, well, who is the king of the division? Well, first and foremost, put him in the ring, let's find out. But it's all about opinion right now. So most people will probably go pull out one of the champions. It's probably the obvious thing to do, right? But when I look at outside of the 4 champions, the only ones I can really see causing any kind of problems for any of these guys are the likes of Heyman Guia, Liam Williams, Chris Eubank Jr., Kenneth Islam, currently. Maybe a year or two down the line, we're talking about a Felix Cash, Danny Dignam, etc. Okay, and of course quite a few others. But I think that currently, to choose who is the best at middleweight, you have to look at the champions. Sure, we can talk about Chris Eubank Jr. Would he beat a Ryota Murata? I would probably favour Chris Eubank Jr. to beat Ryota Murata, to be honest with you. And that's one of the fights that I mentioned to Bob Arum last week when I spoke to him. Bob Arum promotes Ryota Murata. Chris Eubank Jr. has currently just left the PBC and joined up with Team Sauerland. So there's none of this side of the street or that side of the street kind of talk. It should be quite a straightforward, easy fight to make, you would think, being that Chris Eubank Jr. is number 1 in the division. Maybe Chris Eubank Jr. is now going to be elevated to WBA regular champion. Who knows? Because he is currently the interim champion as well. But when you look at somebody, say, like a Kenneth Islam, in my opinion, was a problem for anybody at 154. He never really got the opportunity, though. Kenneth Islam, he reminds me of Triple G. Yes, they both have Kazakhstani residents, of course they do. Kenneth Islam was originally from China, but has Kazakhstani nationality now. But the way that he fights, he's a beast. We haven't really seen it too much at middleweight because he's only had a couple of fights at middleweight, I think it is. So time will tell on that one. If he's as good as what he was at 154, at 160, he's going to be a real problem. But we're going to have a look at the 4 champions. So for me, I think Ryota Murata, he does have a couple of losses on his resume, for sure, but he has avenged those. So he currently has defeated every man he's ever faced. He's a huge, huge star in Japan. When he fights, millions upon millions of people tune in to watch Ryota Murata in Japan. So him fighting Chris Eubank Jr. makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? It's going to do financially very, very well for Chris Eubank Jr. If Chris Eubank Jr. is allowed to travel into Japan and all that kind of stuff. Bob Arum did explain some of the problems that he was having with Murata and Inoue about getting fighters over to Japan. But hopefully all that will be curbed real soon. But I do think that Ryota Murata is probably the weaker of the 4 champions. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I think Ryota Murata could be a problem for any of these guys. But I think he just falls short of the other 3. Jermall, Charlo, Triple G, and Demetrius Andrade. Those are the 3 flag bearers for the middleweight division. Now, who's the best? Difficult to say. For me, when we look at, say, Triple G, a year or 2 ago, well, no, probably 2 years ago, that's an easy decision to make, isn't it? It's Triple G. He was a beast coming forward, sparking everybody out. It doesn't matter what anybody done. They could land punches on him and hit him with huge uppercuts, and he'll just keep on coming forward and put a beating on you. That's what he was about. I do feel that he was very unlucky in both the Canelo Alvarez fights. But how is he now? And what we've seen of him in his last couple of fights, it does appear that he's on the decline. Is that down to age? Maybe. Is that down to motivation? Maybe. Obviously because of what happened in the Canelo Alvarez fights. Maybe he's only motivated to try and get the Canelo fight back. Maybe he just just having a couple of bad nights at the office. Maybe, because I know a lot of people felt that Derevchenko beat Triple G. I'm not quite one of them. I mean, I don't know. It's arguable, isn't it? It is arguable. But Triple G does have some very, very good wins. Daniel Jacobs and whatever else. But I think that based on recent form, I want to have to go with Jermall Charlo. I think Jermall Charlo, the way that he beat Derevchenko was far, far more convincing than what Triple G did. Honestly. I do feel that Triple G is on the decline. If he's not, well, maybe we'll see in time. Maybe we'll see. But I think that Jermall Charlo, while he didn't look great against Korobov for sure, and he has had a couple of, shall we say, tune-up fights. Again, you see, I think a lot of this is down to the fact that he's on PBC. I'm not going to go at the PBC. I'm not suggesting that he should leave the PBC or anything like that. I just think that the pool of middleweights that they can get is pretty limited. To be honest with you, Derevchenko was probably the best that they could possibly get for Jermall Charlo. But it is what it is. Now, I do feel Jermall Charlo just about has the edge over Triple G, because I do feel Triple G is in the decline. And Demetrius Andrade, while he's a problem for anybody, he's a slick southpaw. Punches not brilliantly hard, but enough to get your attention. Very, very fast on his feet, very fast hands, very good chin. But he hasn't been fighting, he hasn't really been tested. So how do I know how good Demetrius Andrade is? He could legitimately be the best. I'd love to see him and Jermall Charlo get it on. I'd love to see that. But it's unlikely to happen. Anytime soon, at least, anyway. And for me, I don't see any reason why we can't see Triple G Gennady Golovkin against Demetrius Andrade. There's no reason in the world why that can't happen. For me, I think the reason why it's not happening is more on the Triple G side. Not because Triple G doesn't want to fight himself, but because I don't think DAZN, I don't think Eddie Hearn, I don't think anybody else involved wants Demetrius Andrade in there with Triple G in case Andrade beats Triple G. When you look at the income, the stardom, the finances, Triple G is a bigger star than Demetrius Andrade. So what they don't want to do is have Demetrius Andrade beat him. Maybe, right? But anyway, for me, I want to see that fight. There's absolutely no excuse in the world why that can't happen. None whatsoever. So let's get it on. But I do feel that Jermall Charlo is currently the best in the middleweight division. Don't get me wrong, I think there are some other fighters out there who could give him huge problems. I think Gennady Golovkin and Demetrius Andrade could give him huge problems. If Jermall Charlo isn't on point, he could lose to either one of those. Same against Chris Eubank Jr. I know people will smirk or whatever about that one, but honestly, I think Chris Eubank Jr. is a problem. Liam Williams, very, very heavy-handed. We've seen him lately. Ever since he's moved up from the super welterweight division into middleweight, he seems to have found his feet. Very, very heavy-handed. Can take a shot too. He is Demetrius Andrade's mandatory, so there's a good chance we'll probably see that one next. If, of course, Demetrius Andrade doesn't vacate the belt and move up and take on Billy Joe Saunders. Okay, but I mean, for me, I think when I look across at the four champions and those around, I think Jermall Charlo is probably king of the middleweight division right now, if I'm being brutally honest about it. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Maybe you guys will different, or maybe have different thoughts to what I have. But either way, drop them below, click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you on the next video.